The following program was produced by an independent community producer. The opinions expressed do not necessarily reflect those of the ECAT staff or board of directors.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the second episode of Spiritually Speaking. I am so happy to be here today, and I have two amazing guests. I have two spirit mediums with me. I have Julie Clapp, who's from Easton, Massachusetts, and Tiffany Rice, who's from Bridgewater, Massachusetts. But you can find both of them online. But these two women I have known for quite a while. We kind of run in some of the same circles. We've had a lot of different places that we all have been together, and I find they're both incredible mediums. They do so many wonderful things with the spirit world. And I wanted to talk to them today about their spiritual journeys and the things that they provide to their clients, because I sit back and watch them and find them to both be inspiring, uplifting, and they're wonderful mentors to people who are on the spiritual journey and want some insight into what's going on for them. So we're going to ask them some questions, let them give us their feedback, their ways of looking at the world. And then at the end, I will give you their contact information so you can find them. But I'd like to give a warm welcome to Julie Clapp and Tiffany Rice. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Hey, how you doing?
So ladies, why don't you just start, Tiffany, with telling us a little bit about yourself? I'd like to hear, and I think the audience is interested in knowing, how did you begin your spiritual journey? How did you become a medium? How did you know you had gifts?
Well, I always had a sense of knowing, and I can remember being younger and actually really seeing people. I would have a conversation with someone. As I'm speaking with someone, I would have a conversation and I would see people behind them, but the people behind them weren't really people in that physical realm. So it wasn't until a little bit later on, I decided to start my journey where I wanted to just kind of go full throttle into learning everything about energy, paranormal. I became a Reiki master teacher, and I started doing a lot of events with paranormal people. I'd go to different haunted locations. They'd have me go in and see if I could sense anything. And I ended up taking a class as well. And after I took that class, the class was about mediumship. And so since I was already in tuned, once I took the class, it actually gave me pieces of the puzzle. It actually made me realize, okay, what I'm doing is actually mediumship. I'm communicating with people in spirit. And so as I continued on through that, I decided to really focus in on doing individual readings. And of course, I went through the house party circuit and doing larger group, which I call gallery readings now. And so that's pretty much where I started. And I've been doing it full time. Now it's been well over 10 years that I've been doing this full time, and I love to be able to commit myself to my soul purpose.
That's so great. That's awesome. I just like to say the aside of how I've known you since we grew up in the same town, and I knew Tiffany's older sister, so I used to see Tiffany all the time as a young girl. She was the cutest thing. And then when we both worked at Uplifting, I was working at Uplifting Connections in Bridgewater, and Tiffany was too, and we reconnected then, and you were starting your career. That was so long ago.
It was.
And you were doing paranormal work. I remember that you were very into that. Are you still doing that?
I love it. Yep. Okay. So that's a little side hobby of mine. I was just in Atlanta at Hotlanta, which is a paranormal convention. Oh, cool. And it has a lot of paranormal people that are in the shows, ghost hunters and ghosted, of course, now my mind's blank, but there's a lot of people in that realm of paranormal, and I am the medium to be at the Conjuring House, which is in Burrillville, Rhode Island. So the Conjuring House is a location that's one of the most haunted locations in America, and so I am a medium that I go and do my gallery reading events there. So I love it. Okay, it's so fun. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen that online. I've seen that you've advertised that. I didn't know what that was exactly, but that's great. Okay.
Yeah. There was a movie called The Conjuring, put out about 10 years ago. And, it was a really big hit. And so from that movie, this is the actual farmhouse that the farmhouse that the Perrin family lived on. And so they asked me, not the Perrins, but the new owner, Jacqueline Nunez, has asked me to be part of the Conjuring house where I do my gallery events there. And so
Wow.
I'm feeding
Cool.
my little hobby of paranormal. I absolutely love it. So
That's awesome.
it's just fun because it's spirit. So whether it is something where it's in the paranormal field or something that is grief related, we're all connected. So
yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great. So I didn't realize you did paranormal before you became a medium. You just then you became, but you already really were a medium, and you just kind of realized and developed.
Right. I had no idea. So I would, that's why like I look back and I think like, wow, when I was younger in high school, I'd rather go get my cards read than go to a party, or I would rather like learn about energy or want to play with the Ouija board as opposed to like getting drunk in someone's basement, or, when I'm not supposed to.
In the field.
Yeah, in the field someplace, right? So as I got older and I became more mature, I decided to really divulge and go really in deep with figuring all of that out. And I am blessed enough, and I'm very grateful that I can make a living off of doing what my passion is, which is connecting loved ones in spirit to you.
That's great. That's perfect. Well, thank you, Tiffany.
You're welcome.
And what about you, Julie? How did you begin to know that you were connected, or like tell us a little bit about how you started off your journey?
So I feel like my journey was like not the typical story, and I think that's why I was more skeptical that I had any abilities. I was raised Irish Catholic. There were no psychics, mediums in my family. But I always liked to have had that curiosity about ghosts. I believed in the afterlife. I just didn't believe I had any ability to connect to it. And I wasn't like, as a kid, like the phone would ring and I knew who was on the other end. I didn't feel like I had any psychic abilities at all, but I would have experiences. The earliest I remember is really teenage years, where I would wake up and think I saw somebody in my room, and they didn't speak to me or anything, but I could vividly describe these people, what they were wearing for clothing. And of course, like I would tell my mom, and she'd be like, "No, you were dreaming." And I'm like, "No, I know what I saw." And so I experienced this for a period of years. And then I got married, I went to nursing school, and I kind of just let it go by the wayside. I would go to psychics and mediums with my friends, just like Tiffany. It's just fun, curious things. And it wasn't really until my mid-30s that I started to have those similar experiences again. The difference was I attributed them to the home that I grew up in. Like, oh, this place is haunted. There's ghosts here, right? And then when it started to happen again, it was the home my husband grew up in. That's where we were living at that time. So when I told him, and he knew that I saw ghosts, I guess you'd say, when I was a teenager, when I told him, he was like, "No, there's no ghosts here. I've lived here my whole life." So that's when I started to question, like, why is it just my eyes that are seeing these things? Why am I the only one experiencing them? And so it kind of went on from there, where I had this curiosity. I started to read books, and I had an experience with an uncle that had passed, where I felt like he connected with me, but it was one of those things like, did that really happen? I don't know. I don't want to tell anybody.
Yeah.
But the information that came through was validated. And then that really kind of sent me on the road where I wanted to figure it out. And once I acknowledged it, that's when I feel like spirit really hones in on you, and they really start like, that door is like open. And so it felt like spirit's trying to connect with me a lot more often than they had been before. Maybe they were, and I just wasn't acknowledging them. So that's kind of how I started. And I reached out to a spiritual healer in New York who worked with the Long Island Medium. And I sent her an email that went something like, I'm like 34 years old. I think I'm going crazy. Might you be able to help me? Tell me a book to read. And she actually sent me her number. She said, call me. And she spent 2 hours on the phone with me. She gave me a foundation to build with, made me feel a little safe to explore it. And she said, start reading people. And to this day, we're close friends. It was Pat Longo.
Nice.
And, she was the one she was like my touchstone. She was my go-to to validate the experiences when I would have them. I would send her, this happened. Is this normal? Am I supposed to see when babies are coming? And like, right?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah, that's kind of part of the package. And I used to say to people, they would be like, do you see any future things? Do you get psychic stuff? And I was like, oh, no. I just talk to dead people. I don't do any of that psychic stuff, right? And very quickly I realized it's all part of the package.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it's you slowly kind of embrace the things that come along with whatever your abilities are that are coming to you. You start to embrace the whole package of what it is. So I started reading people. I worked full time as a nurse, and I read one person for free out of my home every Friday night for 2 years. And in those 2 years, the exchange, there's always needs to be an energy exchange. Yeah. And so I wasn't charging people because I was learning. I was gaining something from them. And that's how my kind of client list started to build unknowingly while I was learning spirit's language.
It's funny that you say that, because I can remember a time where when I first started, I would talk to all of my friends and I'm like, yeah, come on over. And they're like, well, can we pay you? And I'm like, just buy me a sub.
Yeah, right.
So it was always like, here's your reading and you get an Italian sub. Thank you, you know?
Yeah.
Because at that point it was like, I was counting my pennies. And so I was like, you don't have to pay me, but if you want to get subs and pizza, we can do that. So
yeah. And sometimes I would tell people, like people that are insistent that, that makes them feel comfortable, I'd say, make a donation to a charity of your choosing or something like that. And that will make you feel like you contributed something too. But honestly, I was just so grateful that people were giving me the chance to practice with them and see, because really I needed that validation. I always tell people I was my own greatest skeptic. Yeah. Nobody sat in front of me that was more skeptical of me than me.
Well, because you have to let go of that ego,
right?
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a tough thing, because sometimes we can't see that. Obviously, when we do our readings, we see it in our mind's eye.
Right.
So we can't all of a sudden validate it. It's up to the person that we're reading to validate it. And so we get nervous, like, well, what if we're wrong? Because as you know, when the information comes, it doesn't always come so flowy, like, oh, here we go, this is it. Sometimes we have to think and process. So it's that thinking and process motion where I'm sitting, before I would sit there and just kind of stare at them like, does it make sense? Hello? And they'd be like, I don't know. And so many times, and I know you can probably relate, where it's like you'll give them a name and they're like, nope, makes no sense to me. Yeah. And then like 24 hours later, you'll get an email and they're like, oh my gosh, that's my dad's name. Who you brought through? I totally forgot. I just call him Dad. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah.
That's what I say to people. When you're in the hot seat, it's almost like your brain does not, your memory doesn't function, because I think people come in for a reading and they have this person, they know who's going to show up. They know exactly what they're going to say. They're going to talk about the ring, my mother's ring that I'm wearing or whatever. And spirit comes in with their own agenda. And sometimes it's totally different, but nonetheless, those people, if they kind of surrender to the process, they leave with what they need to leave with. It just doesn't always unfold in the way they thought it was going to. And so yes, you will say things and we don't see the whole picture. We're getting little glimpses, little puzzle pieces, and those puzzle pieces start to tell a story as the reading unfolds. And so they're kind of, maybe able to validate one or two, and then it's maybe 20 minutes in, they're like, oh, I see the whole picture clear of what the message is and who these people are. Or maybe it's a day later that they put those. So we don't always our ego doesn't always get validated right in the moment. And that's the part of like being vulnerable with those people. But that also I feel like is where the impact comes in, and those people start to trust you, because it's 24 hours later after their reading, they're like, oh my gosh, they have the epiphany, and they're like, that was true. What she said was true. Yeah. And so that's what builds the trust, I feel like, between you and your sitter, because you're both vulnerable.
Exactly. And just like Julie said, it's always the information that you need, not what you want.
Yeah.
What would you say, ladies, right now to someone who's listening to this and is like, I think I have some abilities. I think I'm seeing things. Like there's a lot of people that I come in contact that are just starting to open up. What would you say to them?
Keep going and start with just, even if you get playing cards, right? Like if you can get playing cards, you can get them pretty inexpensive. Grab some playing cards, shuffle the cards, and actually just like feel the cards, see what you feel, pick a card, and before you look at it, ask, okay, if it's regular playing cards, is it red? Is it black? Is it, what suit is it? Start to get your intuition up and going. It's kind of like a little warm up for your pineal gland, so it's opening yourself up. That's just one thing, but there's so many things like meditation. Start being in groups that people accept you for who you are, because we're all intuitive to a certain degree. We're just tuned in differently.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a lot of what I tell people, unknowingly, I think when you're, whether it's your intuition, mediumship, whatever opens that door to that journey, that spiritual journey for you, it's a journey of self-discovery. So you're not expecting that. You're expecting to be of service and help other people. But what happens is you really start to get to know yourself, all your pieces, all your parts, how you work.
Yes.
And the only way, what I've learned is your abilities get so much stronger the more you know yourself. Right? Yeah. Because you're defining the edges of your energy. And so you're way more apt to recognize when how to interpret energy outside of you, because you're not taking it on as your own. You're like, this is where I end and you begin. And so you start to feel that presence more often, whether it's from a human being or a spirit energy. They're impressing on your energy field and you can feel the difference. And so that's really when I started to feel a spirit's personality. And I'm like, wait a minute, suddenly I feel like an 80-year-old man with like a froggy voice, right? Like,
yes.
But that's when that part of it comes, is when you really start to get to know yourself and you're like,
You
this
have
is not
to.
me.
Yes, it's imperative. And that's when, just like I mentioned before, it's like taking that ego out of it. I mean, I remember giving a reading and I'm like, I don't know. I just feel like saying, giddy up, cowboy. And the person that was in front of me said, oh my gosh, my uncle used to say that all the time. And I'm like, because I would never, I said, I would never say that, by the way. And so I can relate to you, Julie, because it's like we have to set up our healthy boundaries with ourselves. And guys, do the healing work. Before you start healing other people, make the commitment and be consistent with doing your own healing work, whatever that is to you. Because there's so many people I find in this field, which is probably a whole other episode. But there's so many people that may be going through something really difficult. And in order to make them feel good, they hop into this holistic field where they're like, well, I'm going to make other people feel good. And that's great. And that intention is great. But if you're not doing the healing work on yourself and being consistent with that, whether it's going to therapy, whether it's taking care of your body, whether it's doing your soul work, you can only go so far with helping people. So to be your true authentic self and be your best and better version to help someone to the quality that you want to give them, do the work on yourself first.
Yeah, that's the thing I admire about both of you, is that you show people the way to do that. You know, you help people with meditation, and Julie, you give those beautiful messages daily and you're manifesting. Both of you do that for others. I think to me, that's huge. Like, I don't see the value in someone just shooting out messages from people. Okay, I'm done. Like, to me, I don't see the value unless you were really desperate back, and you want a message so bad, but you're opening a door for everybody with, I think it's getting that trust from people, you're validating them. And then they usually want to know more and they want to start a journey, right? Do you see that a lot?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. And then we'll do a class, like I'll do like a level 1 intuition class. And then people say, well, when's the next one? I want to hear the next one, and I know, Julie, you do the same.
Yeah. And, even when I do my group readings, I always close letting people know that what they had just experienced, whether their first time or their second time, I'm always there for people. I'm not going anywhere. I'll probably always do this work for people. But the goal really is that I open some kind of door for them, and that I've brought something, their loved ones have brought something to the table to say, you recognize this is me, this is me, this is me still in your life now. Now I'm going to try to show you other things. And can you elevate that consciousness or that awareness to these things? Because that's expanding on their consciousness too. Right. And so their loved ones, the goal through a medium is really, I want to dial directly to you, but I need someone to open that door. Yeah. And so we're the door openers really to someone's own intuitive voice, that connection for them with the spirit world. They don't expect their loved ones to have to go to mediums forever, right?
Yeah.
They want them like, we're blossoming this flower for you here. Like you can take it. And a lot of people don't because of fear. They close that door back up because of fear. No, I'll just have you do it for me. Right. Yeah. And that's okay too. Because you don't want it to be a fearful journey. But I think if you're ready, it really can be a beautiful journey.
Yeah. Do you feel like, since you've both opened up to your mediumship and your intuition really coming in, do you feel like you've seen the world differently, like the magic in the world? Is that what opened the door, or were you kind of like that before you saw your gifts come into play?
I see things totally different now, and there's no way I could go back to not seeing it the way that I see it now. Mm-hmm. And it's just becoming more and more enlightening as time or timelessness continues, because, we're just dealing and working on a higher vibration at all times. And we see that, learning to love our loved ones in spirit, even though they're not here physically, they're always going to be here with us. And we're always going to have that connection. It's just learning to love them in a different way, different form. And paying attention to signs. Like, I feel like signs just come naturally to me all the time now because I'm always connected with spirit.
That's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, I would say for me, I definitely see the world differently. I think the way I look at things is I try to look for kind of like what honey, what nectar can I extract out of any given situation? Like everything, there's an equal and opposite counterpart to everything. So as much as there's light in the world, there's going to be darkness. As much as there's joy, there's going to be sadness. And the only way you can really, I think, elevate yourself to that level of feeling the magic in the world is if you also allow yourself to feel that density when you're sad or when you're angry. And so kind of when you learn to hold space for those emotions in yourself, that's where you're expanding and you're giving other people permission to expand. So when people come to you and they're angry or they're sad, you're less apt to look at it like, what's their problem, right?
Yes.
You can hold space for those emotions because you've learned to do that for yourself. So you walk through the world very differently when you encounter people who maybe are in a bad mood, or, you maybe protect your energy a little bit more from those people because you're kind of like a sponge, but at the same time, you view them in a different light because you've allowed yourself to experience those things. So you do see things differently.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I know for myself, this journey has been the biggest thing. Like there's no other journey that could give me this much growth and this much self-doubt and fear and every emotion and every negative thing that could possibly be in a human body. Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. So, I feel like for myself, I've been challenged so many times. I've left my business. I stopped doing work. I've done it all. Talk to the audience and tell me too, what about you when you're coming out and you're like, what? Oh, Tiffany Rice talks to dead people now. Oh my God, did you hear about Julie Clapp? Like, mm-hmm. How did you deal with really coming out to your families, to your friends, to just really trusting that you could get out there and do this work? Like what was that journey? I know it wasn't easy. I know it wasn't like, I'm putting my shingle out. So talk about that.
Literally, I just owned it. I just owned it. And if people didn't like it, oh, well, I knew that this is what I felt so strongly that this is what I'm here to do. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Not everybody's going to like me. And that's fine. That's cool. That's on them. If they don't like me, that's their issue. Yeah.
Most
it's not
people,
personal.
Everyone loves you though.
You can't take it personal. And if somebody doesn't understand it, that's okay. Maybe at some point they can learn on their own time. It's all right. But I respect people for who they are. And I mean, I would love the respect in return, but sometimes I don't get that. I just know that I'm happy like a little bee, like a little busy bee. I'm happy being me.
That's good. That's perfect. So you didn't get out there and then get some self-doubt come in and be like, I don't know if I can do this.
Oh, you should see my comments on TikTok.
What are they?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, I have so many amazing comments, but then you have, there's so many people that are either, it was 22 on the clock, but there are so many people that want to put on like a negative, they'll say something negative, or they'll say, whether it's TikTok, social media, whatever it may be. Here's the thing, like you're always going to get that. Even family, if they don't understand it, if you're not working that 9-to-5 job, if you're not, if you came to my house in the middle of the day, I am in, I call a sweatcito, like sweatpants and a hoodie, and I look like a disaster, but yet I could be doing multiple readings. And that's the thing. Like, so what I do is live my life and love my life. And if people don't understand that I can do that looking a certain way or putting myself out on social media, sharing my gift, sharing my readings, if some people don't like that, then they don't have to subscribe. They don't have to follow me. They don't have to put their energy into my energy. They can just kind of go do their thing. Again, they'll get there when they get there. I respect them for who they are. And, if it's okay if they don't respect me, because it's, it has nothing to do with me. Right. It has to do everything with them. And so
that's so true.
That's why I'm saying, like, guys, if you are out there and you're worried about what family's going to say or what friends are going to say, or just own it. The more you become more in touch in that, again, this goes back to the healing we talk about. When you start to heal yourself and you learn, just like you said, Joanne, like you can't take anything personal. You just can't, because a lot of times it's based on maybe somebody else's insecurities or self-sabotaging ways and so forth. So they, whatever it is, whatever made them say it, we'll never know. But all we can do is control and preserve our own personal energy. So it's really important to do the healing work on yourself, and own everything you do.
That's good.
You know, speak with confidence. Be confident.
Yeah, that's really good.
You know, we're only here on this multi-universe for a short time, but we have to just make sure we live our lives the best way that we can. Whether you're a medium, whether you're a broadcaster, whether you're an athlete, whatever, like there's always going to be negative talk, but it doesn't mean you have to obtain that into your space.
Right. That's good. Awesome. What about you, Julie?
I was totally, it took me a long time to get there. And I definitely felt like the beginning, I was like a turtle without a shell. I took everything personal. If people, I kind of came out of the medium closet. I wrote a blog and I posted it on Facebook and I was like, nobody will see it. Nobody follows me. Right? And then some people responded really positively. And it was a short while after that, I started to get a lot of negative feedback from people. And it was hurtful because it felt like, oh, they don't know who I am. They don't know my true intentions, right? So it feels like, how can they view me in that certain way? So I did take it personal for a long time. And it did take a lot of healing that I had to do to come into that confidence and really getting to know myself and feeling comfortable. And the realization that I kind of brought myself to is when you go on that journey of expanding your beliefs, your consciousness, whatever it may be, people like the contentment. It feels safe to be able to place you in a box, right? To keep you predictable. It makes people feel safe. So when you expand beyond that, you become something different than what people are expecting. It's going to poke their fear. It's going to poke their fears in themselves. It's going to poke their self-doubt. So it's really just a projection of energy. You're mirroring something to them that they're like, oh, I can't go on that journey and you're not going to drag me on it. So I'm just going to disconnect from you. And so you do lose people along the way and you do have to, but it's no different. It's a process. You're going to grieve the living too. You're going to grieve jobs. You're going to grieve homes. You're going to grieve relationships. And you have to start to look at it from that higher awareness of, this is the process of our expansion. And just like she said, we're all going to get there when we get there. We can't drag one another there. It has to be, on our own terms, our own free will. And so you just come into that acceptance of that.
That's great. That's really good. I used to feel like uncomfortable in new situations, like when people would ask me questions, like say, you live in Easton too, like being an Easton mom and starting off with the mom groups that I met and stuff. It was very uncomfortable for me. Yeah. But what I realize now, though, that was my fear. And now, like people that I met along the journey, a lot of people are really interested. They want to know more about spirituality. They want to know more about how they can help themselves heal. But I was taking it as, why are they asking me these questions? I was so I've had a very long journey with coming into my own, what do I say? Spiritual self, I guess, or like standing in my power with all of it. Mm-hmm. And speaking of, you both mentioned, like, how do you help people, or what do you say? Because a lot of your people are dealing with grief. They're right in it, when they're seeing you. What do you do about that? Or how do you help them with that? What do you say, or how do you direct them?
I would say, as far as, we give them the readings, and the readings provide them with comfort and healing and letting them know that we are never truly alone. And I used to believe it was one day at a time, and now I say it's one breath at a time. Yeah. And some days you have it, some days you don't. And that's okay. Julie had mentioned sometimes you just have to hold space and just pause for a minute. And if there's moments and times of your day where you have to kind of tap out for a minute and just regroup, that's okay. It's part of the grieving journey. Mm-hmm. There's moments of, I'm okay, and moments where you just can't get out of bed. So as long as you honor that, everybody grieves differently, and you have to do what's best for you.
Yeah, that's good.
And think of the moments to live for, Yeah, that's what really it is. Like too. Thinking of the moments to live for and realizing that our loved ones in spirit are flying right next to us all the time, and they are here for every moment of the day. Again, there's no time. We can go into, that's another episode.
Right. Yeah.
But
yeah, right.
There's so many, that's why
it's cool.
Joanne's like, let's hop on for a couple minutes. I'm like, let's take the whole day.
I know, right?
We could go so far.
I know. It's really cool. Yeah. That's good.
I think for me, like she said, grief is a very individual journey. And, I may not be able to relate to each person that sits in front of me with whatever grieving that they're going through, but I can try to hold space for that person and let them know that not everybody in their life is necessarily going to have the capacity to do that at different times. And I think that's where it gets really hard, is when everybody else starts to go back to their life. Like life goes back to normal for those other people who didn't suffer the loss. And then here's this person in this deep pain and saying, well, who's still going to be here to pick me up? And sometimes the people in their life have, they're depleted or whatnot. So they can't show up for them anymore, but their pain doesn't end. And so just being that person, well, I'm here, because you may not be as close to the grief. So it doesn't create discomfort for you. It's there's those boundaries for you energetically, so you can hold space for that moment. And that's kind of, I think, part of a process that a medium learns, is how to hold space energetically, but also not to carry it. So not take it on and carry it. We're in the process of learning how to let energy flow through us and to release it, right? It's even for our own health and well-being.
It takes a while. Yeah, it does take a while. And that's where like setting those healthy boundaries come into play. But you don't realize you have to set them because as beings as we are, we automatically are drawn to help heal in some form or capacity. So we want to just give it all, because we just want that person that's sitting in front of us to say, I feel so much better. Thank you so much. And you can sit there, and it could be an ego thing where you're like, hey, I did that. I know. Thank you. Yeah. But when you do it time and time again at the capacity that we're doing it now, it can be so draining. So it's imperative that you really do learn how to set those healthy boundaries. There was moments last week for myself, even I had to just shut it down and hop in my sauna and just chill out and get, really reacquainted with my own personal energy and recharge. So it's so important when you're doing this holistic work. Joanne, I know you do a lot of Reiki too, like when there is that that exchange of energy, that you make sure you're taking care of yourself first and foremost.
Absolutely. I feel like doing Reiki, like, do you do Reiki too, Julie?
I don't.
Okay.
I get Reiki, but I don't.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I know you do, definitely.
Nobody wants me for Reiki though, so I send them to you.
Right.
They're like, this is cool and all, but is my mom here in spirit? And I'm like, you want to go to Joanne?
Totally.
Go to Joanne.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's totally it. It's like, it's interesting because I had a phone call with somebody. So my friend recommended his sister to me. I don't think he really knew exactly what I did. And so we set up an appointment, and then I don't know what happened before the appointment, but I'm like, no, I'm not a medium. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not coming. I'm like, okay, that's all right. But I lost my train. Oh, talking about going into, I was just going to say, giving a Reiki treatment though, like all these years I've been doing Reiki is like me getting one too. It's like heal or heal thyself. So it's amazing. I mean, I could do Reiki for 8 hours. I used to back at Uplifting, and it's not a drain in any way. It's just because you're protected, you're ready, all of that. But when I have done mediumship, I studied mediumship for a long time, and that's a whole different energy. And it's, how do you start off? Like, and I love this. I want to hear you both talk about you doing events together. I think that is so amazing and so cool. Like, how do you start your night? Do you start with them? You start with the meditation with your groups, usually kind of getting them in the energy, or what do you do? Talk about how do you protect yourself?
We kind of keep it real. We're like, okay, there's 100 people here. We're about to poop our pants, but we're going to do the best we can.
Exactly.
Just keeping it real. And like,
so you start,
they relate
start laughing?
to, our nervousness or whatever. Like it's vulnerable to, and we have to do it to be able to reach people, but it's not always like the easiest thing either.
I have serious anxiety. I love watching mediums so much. It's my one of my favorite. I have anxiety watching, like, oh my God, are they going to have it? Like one time Rita Berkowitz was interviewed on the news, and I was like, oh, she's going to be okay. But she did it, just like you guys. I know that the energy will start the flow once you start laughing and getting everybody.
We'll do like a little intro of who we are. So, because sometimes people don't even realize. Even in my private readings, I'll do an intro like, okay, I'm a spirit medium. That means I communicate with people that have passed. And they're like, wait a minute, what? Like, I just need some career advice. I'm like, what? Okay, what did spirit medium, or everything is like medium, like if you Google me, everything's medium, and what it is. And people are like, what? So we do, I feel like we owe it to them to at least say, hey, you could get a reading by us, and we bring through our loved ones in spirit. So, or your loved ones in spirit. So we do that, and then we start. But
you can both do psychic stuff though, right? Like other things come up, not probably in your galleries, but you can say like, oh, I see you in a new job, and I see this guy's coming in. That kind of stuff still comes in.
So all mediums have the psychic ability. We're intuitive to be able to pick up on psychic things, but not all psychics are mediums.
That's it. Exactly.
So that's the difference. Yeah. So some people can say, oh, I'm psychic. So they're psychic and they're very highly intuitive and so forth. But if you are a medium, mediums are also highly intuitive to pick up on that. So it's like, you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah, kind of where you're retrieving your information from. And I feel like that's why mediumship is more draining, because I think you're accessing this higher consciousness versus when you're going in with the intention of like psychically retrieving information, you can retrieve that from that person's energy field, from that person's knowing, versus, all right, I'm getting beyond you and your energy, and I'm going to this higher source of wisdom or consciousness. And so we really got to raise up. We got to be on our game to get there, right? To match that
so
frequency.
Well put. Yeah. Because I always tell people, if someone wants intuitive reading, I'm like, okay, easy, let's go. You know, and then the mediumship is like, okay, hold on, let me just channel in here for a minute. Yeah, so that's really well put.
Do you do anything special? Like if you have a reading, you know, you guys have a gallery coming up, do you like not eat certain foods, not do certain things for a couple days in advance to kind of keep your channel clear? Anything like that you do?
No, I continue on.
Tiffany's
this is why I hang out with her though. I'm like, girl, like I'm gonna be like you someday.
Literally, I'm pretty solid. You know what? I won't do as many readings that day.
Okay.
If I have a gallery reading that night.
So you're doing private readings every day, or like you have set days?
Pretty much every day. Pretty much every day. I try to take the weekends off, but a lot of people need the Saturday readings, and you know what? It's fine.
And you just do phone. You don't do Zoom.
No, because you know what? I'm going to tell you why. I have dogs and they are maniacs. And when I have bad ADD, so if you couldn't tell, but when I do phone readings, I'm constantly moving around, walking around. And so if I'm in a Zoom call, it would have to make me sit still and be like, okay. Yeah. And then when I talk about my dogs, like literally there can be a dog fight, because that happens. Yeah. My dogs have jumped up on the bar table that I have. Like it's insanity over at my house. So, which plays into part when you come over, you see that I do look like I'm a little disheveled, but it's a chaotic energy. Yeah. So I still do. I offer phone readings. And it's funny because TikTok has been so good to me in the way of, like, last week I gave a reading to someone in Switzerland, Dubai, Australia. Awesome. Yeah. So there's people all over the world. And guys, if you're thinking about it, like, how does that happen? And Julie, I know you probably agree, but energy is energy, you know? Yes. So it doesn't matter if we're physically in front of each other. Yeah. Or, I mean, Joanne, you do Reiki. So Reiki too is all about distant healing, you know? Yeah. It's all energy, guys. Think outside the box a little bit and realize that. That's how we're able to connect with your loved ones in spirit. They're not physically here either, you know? So just kind of think a little bit outside the box and have that understanding and knowing, you know?
Yeah. So, spirit's not confined by logic, space, or time.
Exactly.
No. Yeah. And Julie, how about you? Do you have do you have to do special things to get ready?
You know, when I started, yes, I like that. I used to have a lot of rituals, but I felt like, you know, the more you go on your journey, the more you realize those are tools just outside of you to keep, to make you feel confident. Yes. Right? Like if I do this and I have all my rituals that I do, then I'm going to know I'm ready. And then, you know, the deeper you go, the more you're just like, oh no, they're always there. Yeah. Like they're just waiting for me. So it was really just a confidence thing. Yeah. And I still light incense because I love the smell.
Oh, you do? Someone must be psychic.
But not before, not necessarily before my readings. I do it just in my home and things like that.
Yes.
But as far as the only thing I would say that I do to prepare, because food does feel dense to me. Yeah. Before, like, so I typically will fast for a few hours at least before I do group readings. Private readings, it's not so much. It's the amount of energy that I'm channeling, how many energies are pulling me. So when we do our shows together, like I wouldn't like eat a pizza beforehand. Just
right.
Because, like, I'd probably throw, but like I save it for afterwards. Yeah. You know, it's like my reward or whatever. But before it feels really dense. It feels like it's counterproductive to where I'm trying to get my energy level to. So I don't. I typically will eat very clean, fresh fruits, vegetables. I do have my coffee. I'll never give that up no matter what. If Spirit tries to take it, I'm
love
like, no.
coffee.
Right?
Yeah.
But that's pretty much it. My private readings, I eat normal like I normally would.
Yeah.
I agree with you too. Like I won't, because I've done it where I've had like chicken broccoli Alfredo, and then I'm like, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, how am I gonna? Yeah. So anything that would be light. So if you guys are thinking about connecting more with your energy, just like Julie said, clean, a limited diet, drink at least 2 liters of water, which is really good, which I struggle with. As you can tell, my skin's flaking off. But yeah, those are some of the things.
That's good. That's good. I like that you mentioned that too about the rituals, because that's really not true. I know I've been in that place too. Like I have to have all these stones out and this all, and now it's like you just go with wherever you are at. What would you say, ladies, is like one of your greatest readings? Like, do you have a memorable reading, something that happened in a gallery or with a private client that really stands out to you as something that you're like, you know what? This is why I'm in this work. This is me. This is why I'm here. Anything like that you could share?
Yep. I had a family from Maine come to see me. They had lost their son, and he came through in a reading, and I thought that was amazing. And he spoke to 10 of his family members and friends, and we kept in contact, and they ended up contacting me because they felt like they had such a close connection with me and their son, Nolan. And they said, we are meeting his organ recipients today.
Wow.
And I would love for you to be able to be there, because I just want to make sure that Nolan knows that I'm okay. And so I went and met Nolan's parents, and I just stood by their side and gave them the comfort and the support and assured them that Nolan was there with them at that moment of meeting his organ recipients. And so I got to meet them too. And it was such an emotional, loving feeling to see that because of their son Nolan, who passed, he was only 13 when he passed, but because of Nolan, there was so many families, I think maybe 5 or 6 families that have changed because he was an organ donor. And
that's amazing.
That was a huge, huge, significant moment in my career, thinking, yeah, this is exactly why I'm here. And this is exactly why I do the things that I do. Because of my reading, Bringing Through Nolan, I was able to bring this family so much peace that they trusted me and they wanted me to be part of this milestone in their life. And it was really such a beautiful experience.
That's amazing. I just got the chills when you said that. That is a truly amazing story. What a beautiful thing to be a part of. That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
What about you, Julie?
I mean, I could probably think of a bunch, but I do. There was one time when I was doing house parties, and at this house party, this young male started to come through. He was very newly passed. He had passed in a car accident. And I was reading this woman, and she said, I know who this boy is. And it wasn't one of her family members, but he had recently passed. He was a boy in our town. She knew the mom, and her son had been connected to him through school. So she was like, I don't know if the mom's open to it, but I gave her all the messages and I left. 2 days later, I went to a different house party, like one town over, similar area, but one town over. And I'm reading a woman there, and this young male starts to come through who passed in a car accident. And I'm starting to get that feeling of like, this feels like familiar, this feels familiar. Yes. And so the woman says, yes, I know who this boy is. He just passed, blah, blah. It was the same boy. And his messages were for his mom. So both of these moms knew this mom, and they both reached out to her. And so a few days later, she reached out to me, and she said, my son has come through to you at two separate places. And I just feel like he must need me. And I said, you come and sit in front of me. And it's not about, I think when spirit does something like that, for me, it's not even about like, you're just coming and we're sitting because spirit says so. It's no longer a paid service. It's This is how it's supposed to be. So her and her husband came, and just witnessing I mean, being a mom myself, when you see someone in front of you who is suffering the worst pain a human being can suffer, you can't help but feel that and take that on to a certain degree. But the story was her husband and her came, and he came through for them, and it was beautiful. And obviously it helped them, but it was a long journey for them. And she continued to come to some of my group readings and whatnot. And just seeing the transformation, a couple years later, seeing her and how she now connects with her son's spirit. She doesn't even need a medium anymore. She's the medium. She connects with him every single day, she would say to me. And it was like, she was smiling again, and she was living again, and she was breathing. And she had brought someone in her family who had also lost a child to get a reading. And it just made me feel like, seeing that transformation, there's nothing else that can possibly take the place of that. And it's just an amazing feeling to watch somebody's healing process and know that you were some way a part of it or a catalyst for it.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why we do what we do.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. That's amazing. That's so beautiful. I can't, and do you ever feel like your emotions come in sometimes?
Yeah.
Oh, I cry.
Like
Yeah.
It's hard.
I've cried
not to.
before.
Yeah.
I've cried before.
Yeah. Because you're empaths too. So it's that part of it is there. And tell us, what do you do? Tell any stories that were like something you learned in a challenging way, like anything happened that you were like, won't do that again, or how do you handle things that are challenging when you're doing readings? Or do you ever feel like this, like you're in a gallery and you walk in and you have this all the time? You have the guy who's like, show me your stuff, you know? How do you deal with that kind of thing?
I say, I'm not here to prove anything to you. I'm just here to tell you what I'm being told.
That's good.
That's it. I mean, again, because I always get that, and I'm sure you do too, where the wives are like, I'm such a believer. My husband's the biggest skeptic. I just want him to believe too. And I'm like, please keep him at home. But yeah, I mean, before I'd get really like burnt out and heard about it. And now I just say, okay. Yeah. I'm just here to tell you. So, and then there's been times where, actually I was in a different state and I was doing a gallery reading and I was bringing someone's daughter through, and which I didn't realize the connection yet. So I kept saying to her, okay, so she's showing me this, she's showing me that. And excuse me. And she kept telling me, nope. So of course I was like, okay, hold on to it. And then her friend who was sitting with her said, okay, no, she's just saying no because this is actually her daughter's coming through. We know this is her daughter coming through. She's just not ready to hear it. And so she's going to keep telling you no. And I'm like, all right, well then I'm going to leave it at that. And I ended up moving forward with somebody else because even though she bought a ticket and wanted a reading, she wasn't ready to hear what was being said. So instead of her saying, I'm not ready yet, she just kept saying no, to the point where it was almost everybody in the room was like, okay, buzzkill. Like, who is it? Because they were like, what? Like, what is going on? So that's why her friend said, look, this is what's happening. And so that's why I said, all right, I'm going to keep going then. And I went to somebody else because you also, again, it goes about like preserving your own energy. You have to. And if someone is just going to say no. Yeah, you're like, okay, well, now we're cutting into time where other people that really want messages may not get the message that they need to hear right now because we are taking the energy on that person. Right.
I kind of find like one of two things. So, when the guy shows up and his arms are crossed, I just let them know I'm not coming in with the expectation of changing their mind on anything. And so I kind of just tell them, listen, I have a husband too. And when I told him there was a pink elephant in the backyard that he wasn't seeing, you should have seen the look on his face. So I kind of went in with that. I go in with that notion of like, they're not gonna, I don't expect them to believe me.
It's not your job.
And I think when I tell them that, like, I have a husband too, and he didn't believe me right away. It took me years to transform him, So it kind of, I think, lessens their need to be anything different than they are in that moment. And even, certain, females when they're same thing, no. And I've found a lot, it's because they have this one person that they want to hear from. And that might not be the first person person that comes through. So I always start with like, listen, if your B-lister comes first, no, they may bring your A-lister. So try to go with the flow of that process, because if you block the B-lister, you're blocking the person you want to hear from coming.
Mm-hmm.
So surrender to the process. Have a little trust in them that they're going to give you what you need. You don't need to trust me, but trust them and see what happens. And then people will kind of relax into it, but sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're just not ready. They have their agenda, and if you're not giving it to them when they want it, how they want it, they're not going to receive it. And it's the same thing. You just have to know. You got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them.
Exactly. And guys, if you are looking to go to a gallery event and you want your friends to experience it, and they're telling you they're not ready, listen to them.
Yeah.
If they're not ready, if they don't want to go, they don't want to go. So, pause a little and realize, okay, they're not ready. So I'm going to go. I'm going to see if so-and-so comes through, and then they'll come with me when they're ready. It's just listen to them. If they say they don't want to go, don't force them to go.
Yeah, that's good advice. What do you do about clients that continue to contact you, that you've given them many readings and they are not ready to just let go and try it on their own, or they need you? Like, how do you handle if someone's calling you every week or wants to have readings too much? What do you do about that? Like,
I always say it's a good rule of thumb to wait 3-6 months, wait for life to happen. And so I will there's certain clientele of mine that I talk to periodically, but they also now have that firm understanding of, okay, I know my mom's here with me. However, I just like to hear if she just like, maybe there's a big milestone that they want to see if they bring up, but I always say, give it time. Let life happen to you. If someone comes to me one week and then the next week they contact Julie, they're probably going to get the same message, in a roundabout way. It's probably going to be very, very similar. So my advice is wait for life to happen.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's very good.
You need time to kind of soak in the message too, right?
Yes.
You need time to let it play out a little bit and see how it works. Put it into play in your life. How are they guiding you? And see how that unfolds over the next couple of months. And two, especially if you're going to the same medium, which a lot of people do because they build that trust.
Yeah.
The medium's like a fresh, clean slate. And so obviously people that have come to us multiple times, we may know some of their spirits. We do have a memory.
Yeah.
Although a lot of our readings, I mean, for me, I don't remember a lot of the information that comes through. But if somebody repeatedly comes to you, then you're going to remember certain aspects of their loved ones. And so in the beginning, I would be like, oh, let's see what happens. I don't know. I mean, I already know you have a husband in spirit. I know what his name is. So, and those are like the validations that people like. But what I found is that also helped me to expand my abilities, where they started to bring up, oh, I was with you in the store yesterday when you just bought those pair of Uggs, or right?
Yes, yes.
And you're like, oh my gosh, they literally just told me that.
Yes.
And so it expands on your abilities to do that. But I tell them, you want the medium to forget.
Yeah.
And you want your spirits to be able to bring up new things that are going on in your life now, to say, I'm here now, see, to prove that they're here. So
that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. So I have to ask this too now, because we're all from the same area. We've all been in the same circles. Do you think our area is oversaturated with this whole industry now? I feel like it is. And I'm not sure if that's just my perspective, but I feel like everyone does Reiki. Everyone's a spirit medium. Everyone's I feel like it's this area, or
maybe it's just an awakening. Who knows?
Yeah.
But there are a lot of people in this
New
area,
England
area. Yeah, we're all witches anyway. So
yeah, that's what I think for sure. Because I'm always like, is every area like this? Is it because we, have worked in shops and different things that we just know all the people? And I know there's a lot of Facebook groups and stuff now, but I wonder if it is this. What do you think?
It could be. I mean, there's the Bridgewater Triangle.
Southeastern Mass.
Yeah. So, I mean, it very well could be. But New England is so rich with history and, I don't know. I don't have like a solid answer
Yeah.
for that.
When I reached out to Pat Lungo a decade ago, when I first started with my abilities, she said that to me. She said, there is a lot of people waking up. This was 2012. A lot of people waking up in the New England area. She's
Really?
in New York. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So I think it's
That's
just been
interesting.
progressive
Yeah.
from there.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, hopefully we are
Cool stuff.
inspiring one another. Hopefully, you know.
We're
to-
training everyone too. So
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Yeah.
We're actually just training everyone. So of course there's a lot of people in our area.
But
Yeah.
I think too, the good thing is like when we work together and stuff too, it's kind of a way to show people like we're right next, we're neighbors, right?
Yeah.
And we both have thriving businesses and there's
Yeah.
literally no competition.
But there's
Yeah,
no competition
that's huge.
because
We
everybody's
fuel,
going
we
to
fuel each other.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there's so many people out there that, you know, some people might feel more comfortable going to you, Joanne, or you, Julie,
Yeah.
and
That's
they
it.
might not resonate. So everybody, to each their own. Everybody is just so different, and we can all thrive
Yeah.
in our successful careers and businesses and so forth. So there really is no room for ego.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I always say this, you know, like I'm really starting to say this more and more. I don't want anyone to ever say about me, like, it's me, you know, like, oh, she did such a great job in that presentation. She did this,
Mhm.
this, because when you accept that as like, oh, this, and then someone else says she was the worst speaker I've ever seen. I didn't get anything from her Reiki treatment, whatever. It's like, no, it's not about me and either good or bad. You know, I'm just taking myself out of the equation and showing up to do what I'm here to do. You know, that's been my journey. Finally, I think I'm finally there. So
Own it, girl. Just own it.
Yeah.
Just own it. And just
Yeah.
say, no, this is who I am.
yeah,
You know, things come and go. You guys
Yeah.
know I had my own cable show for a few
Yeah.
years, and
I
then
loved being
that-
on your shows.
Yes.
I was telling Julie, we did, what was the number? Was it 707, 907 was your apartment, and 138?
Oh my gosh, that's going back in the day. 800.
Studio 800? Is that what?
Oh no, it wasn't. What? It was in my apartment.
Yeah, but you called it Studio, and it was the number of your house.
800. It was like 801 or something.
Yeah, that was
800.
fun.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, this is like back in the day buffet with,
I
yeah.
don't even think we had phones. Like, I don't think
No.
I don't think there was video on phones then.
No. So we did, because it was in, like, there was a chat room, but the chat room was like, I don't know. It was so bizarre. And then I moved up to Wareham Cable Access
Yes.
TV. So
Yeah.
then I did my show
Saw you
for
there
3
too.
years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't know what happened. I don't know. I don't know.
Did you just leave it? Just kind of like
I just walked away.
No,
No,
Walk through it.
No,
Walk
I
through
have
it.
no idea why. Yeah, I think that's what it was. It was I just evolved into
Yeah.
something else, and
yeah.
yeah.
I
So.
want to hear about what it's like for your shows together, because I think that's so awesome. I love it. I want to hear. Just tell the audience how that works. So, like, what happens there?
Well, I don't. So it started out. I reached out to Julie. Shocking that I'm always the initiator with people, right? So okay. So I reached out to Julie and I was like, "Hi, I'm Tiffany," and we were following each other already, but we just knew each other on social media. And I said, "Why don't we do an Instagram live together?" So for the past couple of years, we did like Coco or like, what is it?
Yeah. Mochas and mediums.
Mochas and mediums. I'm like, what's up with mochas and mediums? Then we transitioned to margaritas
We
and
grew
mediums.
up.
Yeah. We grew up and we're doing like Instagram readings on by the pool, by Julie's pool in the summer.
Mhm.
And then I was like, why don't we do a gallery reading together? And so our first one was in October,
Mhm.
and then we did one in February. Wait, no. Is that right?
We did one in December, another one in
Oh,
December.
okay. October, December. We did one in February. We're doing one in
May.
and we're doing one in
June.
June. In
May. Okay.
yeah, in
May's
Dartmouth.
the next one.
May
That's the Knights of
11th.
Columbus. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, and all of them sell out.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And it's great because it's like we're bringing a little bit of local flavor, and you know, it's my people show up, her people show up, and then they mix, and then they,
so cool.
as a collective, they really find that like healing through grief, and they become friends. And
Oh,
yeah,
that's so great.
it's great.
What? Tell us the date of your next one, because it's May, and tell us that next date.
Thursday, May 11th at the Knights of Columbus in Easton.
And how would someone get a ticket to that?
Tickets are sold through Eventbrite, so they could either go through my website, tiffanyrice.com, or Julie's website.
Which is divinityspiritshop.com.
Yeah, so talk now, ladies. We just have a couple minutes before we wrap up. So just tell everybody where they can reach you on social media and your websites.
Sure. You can reach me to book a reading. You can go to tiffanyrice.com, and I'm at Spirit Tiff on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Spirit Medium Tiffany on Facebook.
And my website is divinityspiritshop.com. My Instagram handle is divinityspiritshop. And on Facebook and TikTok, I'm Julie Clapp, I believe. I'm so bad.
Or if you have trouble, you can find me, Tiffany Rice, and I'll direct you to Julie. Like, hey, we don't want you, but we just want to know where Julie is.
She's my business manager.
That's good.
And you guys got to, if you want to see us, definitely, if you can't be physically there, go to, I always post our videos on my TikTok, which is Spirit Tiff, but there's quite a few of our videos.
Of our shows together.
Yes.
I'll also look at that too. Speaking of that, you guys are both look really amazing. Like you're both in your 40s, right?
Mm.
Yeah, you look amazing. So
time.
Maybe Spirit's helping out.
That'll be the next podcast.
Yeah, right.
Hormones of women in your 40s.
Exactly.
Well, these two have no wrinkles. They both look incredible. Truly,
Moisturizing.
You both look amazing.
You do too.
You do too. But you know what it is? When you're freaking happy, it glows
Yeah.
and shows, and that's what it is. Like somebody had mentioned that to me. They're like, I have a hard time believing your age, and I said, well, a good dermatologist, and no. But ultimately, when you're actually happy, you really do glow. You really do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what it is. When your dharma, when you know what your dharma is, and you have your soul purpose, that is the answer.
Yeah.
Do that first, and then do everything after that.
I love it.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you guys came on today.
Yeah,
Thank you so
you.
much. I find you both to be very inspirational and just very loving and kind to your audience, the people that you serve. You do it with heart, and that's what I think is so necessary with the gifts that you both possess. So thank you for being beautiful women in the world, making a difference.
You
and
too.
Thank you for coming on today. Okay, thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time.